Ichigo, man, that's just a dude. During the run of the big three, Bleach was always my favorite. There was no big or deep reason why, and even saying it was my favorite may not be exactly accurate, but at the time, out of those three, it was the series that week to week I was the most excited to get back to. I just loved all the characters, the art, and all the different wild encounters that Ichigo and the Gotei 13 would have. And of course, all the characters screaming, "Bankai! Bankai! Bankai! Bankai!" All good stuff. While the final arc of Bleach did leave a lot to be desired due to Kubo's health-related issues and other unfortunate circumstances, I was overall happy with the time I spent with Bleach, and I was sad to see it go. As time went on, I got into other series, and I began to think more in depth about them and began comparing and contrasting different aspects of those various shows and manga. My perspectives and opinions also began to change. My love for Naruto lessened, I finally found the love for One Piece, and I found and fell in love with plenty of other series. But even through all that, I still really loved Bleach. However, after thinking about Bleach more and more and seeing videos from creators like Mr. Tomo, I realized something pretty important about Bleach. And that was that I had no idea what happened in that show, like at all. Like, what do you mean the Hogyoku was inside of Rukia? When did that happen? Who's that guy? Wait a minute, the Zero Division was mentioned that early? And like, what did Aizen even actually want this whole time? I have no idea. Like, so much of what happened in Bleach, I just didn't know. And whether it's because I forgot, or I just never absorbed the information, the broad strokes of the series were there, but a lot of the details, both big and small, just weren't. So, when the 1,000-Year Blood War anime adaptation was announced, I took it as a good time to go back through the series from the beginning and actually pay attention this time. And that was honestly a great decision because as I went back through the series and saw all the depth, subtlety, details, and actually understood what was going on, my love and appreciation for Bleach just skyrocketed. But as I was rewatching the series, there was one strange thing that just really stuck out to me, and I couldn't shake it, and that was just how bad I felt for Ichigo. He is constantly and consistently being put through the ringer, both physically and emotionally. Due to his good nature and desire to help, he's always being dragged into terrible situations that he really has no business being involved with, and his friends are always getting into trouble. Having to bear the burdens of expectations and endure the confusion of the extremely limited knowledge that he possesses of the world he was thrown into, and the circumstances of his own existence. Then, even after wrestling with all of that, it's very rare that he ever just gets a clean win, and there's always another shoe waiting to drop.
There's always another shoe.
So, as I traveled back through the series and witnessed all the struggles that he went through, I just kept finding myself thinking, Ichigo really can never catch a break. Ichigo is 15 at the beginning of the series, and it can be very easy to forget that because he looks like a 20-something-year-old model.
Oh, big sexy with glasses.
And sounds just as old. But he really is still just a kid. Boy barely old enough to get a driver's permit. And yet, Ichigo was still thrown into a world so ancient and foreign and made to contend with beings both centuries and millennia old, those of whom have the combat and life experience to match. And yet, he's expected to be able to keep up with them both physically and mentally while having only been a Shinigami for like a month, maybe? Like he's still on the vocab list for the Shinigami chapter, and he's already in life or death battles. Sir, what is a Shikai? I didn't even know they had names. Like, during his fight with Kenpachi, Kenpachi had the nerve to ask Ichigo why he didn't find joy in combat and find thrills in the life or death nature of fighting, even if he was as strong as he was. And it's like, okay, first of all, Kenpachi, you're a freak. And that's okay, because we love that about you. But secondly, and most important of all, why would Ichigo like having to fight and possibly die? The only life or death situations this man has been is when his dad tries to kick him out of a window or algebra tests. Yeah, of course Ichigo got into fights before, but it was usually for the sake of helping someone else or protecting himself. He never sought out fights for the sake of it, and he didn't grow up as a warrior. He grew up as a protector, so he never developed a sense of joy for the fighting itself. His inability to desire battle brought him into conflict with White Ichigo, thus preventing him from being able to hold the reins of his own power. He's criticized by White Ichigo and is told that it's like he's trying to fight with his sword still in its sheath. But once again, for Ichigo, that makes a fair bit of sense, as he was never the type to just want to fight people for no reason. And he definitely wasn't out here trying to murder nobody. And yet, he still has to find some type of way to tap into that instinct. But realistically, I don't think he ever really developed that killer instinct, at least not as described by White Ichigo. More than anything, it seems like he just gained a desire and motivation to get stronger and accept the need to fight. However, even that desire and motivation is not unshakable. During the fight with Aizen, Gen questioned Ichigo, asking him if he had somewhat given up, even going so far as to call him a sweet little baby boy, so tender and mild. That's what he said, believe me, trust me, don't look into it, don't worry about it. Showing genuine disappointment in the fact that Ichigo had, at some level, let the hopelessness of the situation lead him to despair, calling him pathetic. And I'm like, sir, if you don't get off his back. This dude watched all these captains get cut down after getting hit with a genjutsu. His dad, second dad, and a brown woman who's also a cat are getting bodied, and not too long ago, he had a hole blown out of his chest and became an uncontrollable monster. Like, yes, sir, he's struggling. This man is about to take a page out of Sora's book and become a butterfly, and his power level's getting crazy. Like, come on. He's a 15-year-old boy who's just started this gig less than a year ago and has to fight someone who has vastly surpassed almost every other character we knew up until that point, maybe with the exception of Yamamoto. And he's evolving even further. Exactly who wouldn't have a hard time with that? It can be pretty frustrating to watch as these otherworldly warriors who have been living and fighting for hundreds of years question why a 15-year-old high school student from the world of the living doesn't have the same level of mental fortitude or warrior spirit. And for Ichigo, it must be tough not only to have that expectation placed on him, but also to have to get to that state of mind to do what he needs to do and protect his friends in the world. Though I am really glad that the Gotei 13 did eventually come to understand Ichigo and appreciate him as a person and respect him. And you can see this illustrated in Komamuro's iconic speech. The same gap in experience pretty much extends to the physical side of things as well. Ichigo has had to make up for his lack of experience with pure talent and latent potential, and yet all of his opponents will still talk down on him like he isn't actually being amazing. Ichigo has basically had to learn by doing and close an experience gap hundreds of years wide without any formal training in kenjutsu or shinigami practices. And that sucks. He kinda just has to stumble through things, figuring it all out on his own. Then when he actually does get some training, it's always through the most unnatural and rushed way, with some of the most vague, cryptic, and unhelpful directions as possible. Of course, there's value to coming upon answers and figuring things out on your own, because simply being bestowed with the knowledge or information of the exact right thing to do could rob an individual of the actual lessons to be learned or the experience of learning itself. However, all of these people definitely could have given Ichigo some more clear or helpful directions. Ichigo was not raised in the ways of Soul Society, let alone the ways of the Shinigami, and definitely not the ways of Hollowism. So why would he know, like, how to do literally anything? Like, if that were me, I'd be asking so many questions like, sir, how do I make my spiritual pressure come out? Do I just like squeeze really hard? Is it like a kegel? Or think about it. When Uehara threw Ichigo down a hole and told him to become a Shinigami, well, that's it. That's all he was told. Like, dude, how do I do that? Not one hint, not one clue, just do it and hope you're not hungry. And for 3 days, he was just in a hole, watching a disgusting timer count down to his transformation into a hollow and his eventual death. Then, when he finally gets pulled into his inner world, he has to find which of these boxes contains the right source to his power. But once again, how? If Uryu hadn't made an offhand comment about the color of a Shinigami's Reiraku, would Ichigo have even been able to find his power in time? Or would he just be a hollow right now and thus the end of Bleach? Even when he was learning how to use Bankai for the first time, he had to rush his already rushed process for learning it, and with no idea how to actually find his true power. My guy was just scrapping. Can someone please hit this man with a
Hey, listen!
And give him an actual hint? And of course, a lot of the time the situation dictates the need to rush and the need to cover so much ground in such a small time. And that, of course, is gonna sometimes require abnormal methods. But it's unfortunate how often that is the case for Ichigo, to the point where Ichigo would later claim that during the Fullbring arc, he's so used to doing things the rushed way, so they may as well just throw him into the deep end.
俺には時間がねえんだ。もうこの間みたいな修行じゃ生塗り。俺の力を覚醒させるなら、お前たちの誰かと戦わせてくれ。そうやって今まで力を得てきたんだ。
But even then, what choice did he really have? His friends were in danger and they were keeping mad secrets from him, so he needed to get his powers back as soon as possible. And that sucks for Ichigo. Ichigo has never had the chance to just develop, train, and grow in a natural way. It's always through these rushed, do-or-die races against the clock, and it only gets worse from there. Because of the various power sources Ichigo possesses, and the lack of information he has about them, Ichigo is always having to struggle just to use his powers correctly. Massive power fluctuations, wrestling for dominance with the hollow part of himself, having his true strength actively limited, and being duped into believing that old man Zangetsu was, well, Zangetsu. Like, all of that is so trash. He was put in so many terrible situations because of it. Like, his own power has been lying to him since they met, or at the very least withholding / being unable to tell him valuable information. His Shinigami powers were always telling the truth, but the truth was wrapped in so much vague craziness that there's no way you'd ever think that he wasn't just talking nonsense. Instead of being purposefully vague and willfully not saying what they mean, at any point, Old Man Zangetsu and White Ichigo could have just sat Ichigo down and explained what they both individually were. And maybe Old Man Zangetsu couldn't have done it because of the whole blacked out name thing, but White Ichigo for sure could have. It would have made Ichigo's life so much easier, but instead, nope, he has to fear the hollow inside of him and not be able to use his true power, leading to taking more beatings and more mental anguish. I know Old Man Zangetsu's whole thing was that he wanted to protect Ichigo from fighting and getting hurt, and also didn't want him to fully awaken as a Shinigami because of his, quinciness. But it's like, sir, I'm already fighting and I'm already getting hurt, partially because of you. Just tell me your secrets, old man. Even when he had to learn the final Getsuga Tensho, and Ichigo had to accept Zangetsu to learn it, If I were Ichigo, I would have asked, like, couldn't y'all have just told me that? Did we really have to do all this fighting? I know you didn't want to tell me about it because losing powers and all that, but could you not just say, I'm sad and I don't want to lose you? And the Fullbring arc makes me mad because they just throw the boy into a box and are like, hey, do the thing. No guidance at all. And yeah, it does make sense why they were unable to give him guidance, as the powers they wield just come naturally to them. But that's what I'm saying. Like, everything is just on hard mode for Ichigo for no reason. Figure it out on your own and try not to die, like it always is. And even though he was already on the verge of figuring it out, as soon as Chad gives him a hint, he gets it like immediately. Like, literally just tell him how to do things and tell him what's going on. It'll make everyone's life easier. No one can just be straight with him, even in regards to his own backstory. Like, imagine having to learn some of the most pertinent, perception-altering information about yourself from your greatest enemies. Ichigo had to learn that, to a certain degree, his whole life was orchestrated by Aizen. And then, he had to learn that he had the blood of the Quincy King coursing through his veins, all during some of the most intense moments of his life. Like really imagine. Half of your friends have been beaten to near death, another portion have had their powers stolen, another portion have actually died. You roll up on the one who did it and you're like, alright, it's time for me to get some revenge. But he beats you down, breaks your sword, and basically says, alright, goodbye son, I'll pick you up after school. Like, huh? Dog, what? That's terrible. So he was really left to figure things out on his own and just stumble into things about himself. He really was the son born in the dark. Then Ishin finally tells Ichigo his backstory, and he learns that the whole foundational understanding of himself and his powers have been wrong since forever. The feeling of betrayal, confusion, and fear during his confrontation with Old Man Zangetsu, as he questions whether the person that he thought was a trusted confidant, mentor, and part of himself was actually his enemy. Those feelings are palpable through the screen and on the page. And you feel like someone just needs to give that boy a hug and a break. But no, nothing can ever just be simple and clean. Whether it's his own powers keeping secrets, or the realization that Aizen had pulled a bunch of strings in his life, or his fights themselves, there's always gotta be some complication, or it's gotta come with a twist. I mean, the guy battled through Soul Society, defeated Ikkaku, Kenpachi, learned Bankai in a few days, defeated Byakuya, saved Rukia, only to be Uno reversed in the most unforeseeable theme song halting way possible by someone he hadn't even met yet. Disrespect unparalleled. Then, during the Arrancar arc, he battled through the ranks, defeats Dorodoni, he defeats Grimmjow, and finally rescues Inoue, only to struggle against Noitora, have Inoue snatched back, and then he dies right in front of her. But
I lived.
Unfortunately, he defeats Okiura in a way that he can take no pride in, and actively serves as a traumatic event for him, having went berserk, stabbed his friend, and defeated his opponent without his own knowledge, causing the distaste that he had for his hollow side to turn into fear, resulting in his hollow mask and power in general being hindered for the majority of the arc going forward. Canon event immaculate. But then he overcomes that trauma to learn the final Getsuga Tensho and defeat the greatest opponent he's ever faced, only to then have his powers lost, lose connection to the Shinigami world, and watch his friends do his job from the sidelines for darn near 2 years. Truly unfair. Then, after those 2 years, he finally gets a chance to get his powers back, only to then be betrayed by the group that was helping him, and have all of his closest friends and family members turn against him, treating him like he's lost his mind as they defend the man who's been attacking them from the very beginning of the arc. Absolutely soul-crushing. However, even though he lost his friends, he still had Ginjo, and they could fight together side by side to fix what was wrong. Two can be as bad as one, because once again, Ichigo is betrayed, and Ginjo is revealed, and I use the word revealed very loosely, to have been a bad guy all along, all leading up to this boy crying out alone in the rain. The loneliest number is truly the number one. Help, I'm not okay. And neither is he. And then just the whole 1,000-year blood war, man. Nothing goes right. Once again, friends slapped up, Yuha. Just call me daddy! Zangetsu, broken. Then rejected by the Asauchis. And it's pretty rare that Ichigo starts the beginning of the arc down in the dumps, but, well, here we are. But then, suddenly, Ichigo's not falling. He's rising. He learns about his history, which finally grants him the understanding of himself. He learns the truth about his powers. Zangetsu is forged anew. He trains in the royal palace. Comes back stronger than ever, slaps up some Stern Ritters. He confronts Yuha, and all of his powers are working together in harmony. And he unlocks his brand new Bankai. And, back to the dumps we go. Why? To this day, I still question the choice of this. Still may be one of the most painful and disappointing moments I have ever felt as a reader of any manga. So imagine how it felt to be Ichigo. Why would you hurt that boy so much? And I think for me, the thing that makes everything that we've talked about so far so much worse is that Ichigo didn't really ask for any of this. In many shonen series, the protagonist has some grand goal or desire that they're striving to achieve, and we as observers watch as their desire to achieve their goals bring them into conflict. The desire to become Hokage, the goal of finding your father, or even just the general desire to get stronger and be the best that you can be. Ichigo didn't really have anything like that. He really was just a dude, a normal high schooler with weird friends and a loving family. It just so happens that he could see ghosts. And because he was part of some weirdo's master plan, and because he wanted to protect his family, he got dragged into the world of the Shinigami. That's kinda how it always goes for Ichigo. Someone or something comes along and drags him into some nonsense. Even since he was a kid, he was always getting in fights because someone else was starting something. So when the story starts, Aizen sets things in motion, causing Ichigo to gain powers and meet Rukia. Rukia gets arrested and put up for execution, causing the Soul Society arc. The Arrancars target Ichigo's hometown and kidnap Orihime, thus involving Ichigo regardless of whether or not he wanted to contend with Aizen of his own volition. The Fullbring arc is the only one where he's actively pressing forward due to his own desires, but even then kinda not really, because he was just being used and manipulated from the very beginning. Then Yuha returns, goes after Ichigo, attacks his homies in the Soul Society, and ultimately intends to ruin all of the world, so Ichigo is thrust into it regardless. Even in the Hell Arc one-shot, my guy is just trying to work and be with his family, like a productive member of society, and then things pop off, leave him alone. If any of these inciting incidents were removed, what would Ichigo be doing? Nothing really. Probably just chilling and going to school, helping out spirits and maybe killing some hollows if his powers were awakened. That can't really be said about many other characters in shonen. Because if you look at the bigger picture, the inciting incident or the reason that they are in the situation that they're in generally leads back to them pursuing their goal. Luffy isn't fighting all the Yonko because they just rolled up on him. He's fighting them because they're in the way of his journey to become Pirate King. And I definitely don't think there's anything wrong with a more reactionary or passive main character. But for Ichigo, the way everything within the series plays out and how much turmoil he's put through just it just makes it all sting just a little bit more for me. Now, is Ichigo's whole character one of nothing but tragedy that can only invoke sympathy? A poor little boy being wronged by the world and suffering? Yes, look at this. Are you kidding me? What do you think I've been talking about this whole time? No, I'm just kidding. Of course, there's far more to Ichigo than just tragedy. And there are definitely characters that have had it just as rough and plenty that have had it way worse. However, throughout all the hardships that Ichigo faces, from the depths of despair that he often finds himself in, Ichigo always finds the strength and the courage to rise and face whatever is standing before him. That tragedy and turmoil that Ichigo battles through is what makes the inevitable success and victory feel worth it and earned. From tragedy, pain, and despair, there's connection, growth, and triumph. And as a result, we get to see who Ichigo is as a person in his totality. From the lowest of lows to the highest of highs, we watch him battle with himself, the world around him, to protect his friends, to protect all of the worlds, and we watch him fight to find his place within those worlds. From the jaws of defeat, Ichigo will always grasp at victory. That struggle being one of the most compelling things about Bleach and what makes Ichigo himself so great. Though it may be great to watch him fight against all of these odds to reach his inevitable triumph, I just can't help but feel bad for Ichigo along the way. Thank you for watching this video. Ichigo is a character that I have come to enjoy a lot, especially after having rewatched the series and seeing a lot more that's been going on, and I just really feel bad for him. I know I painted him in this very sympathetic and tragic light, but I also obviously know that there's a lot more cool things to Ichigo and cool things about Ichigo, and that's one of the reasons I like him and I like Bleach so much. But anyway, I want to know, what are some characters in anime that you personally just feel bad for? And tell me why down in the comments. I know there's gonna be a lot of guts down there, which is honestly, obviously fair. But once again, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I hope I will catch you on the next one.